Hello neighbor, I'm Robert Burns and welcome once again to another edition of Sound Off Louisiana. And I guess we'll call this the post-mortem of the election which took place yesterday, March the 29th, in which I believe the most resounding repudiation of an incumbent governor happened yesterday, the largest repudiation in my lifetime. And I don't know any other way to say it. If you made a football analogy, the other team, that being the opponents of Governor Landry's initiative, they ran back the opening kickoff for a touchdown and they never looked back. This was an absolute, unmitigated renunciation, or I don't know, it was bad. And I'm going to just cover a few things and then we're going to move on to another topic because this one is certainly dead beyond dead. One of the things that shocked me about all this is that I actually had people tell me that they said, well, Jeff Landry, is he behind this? You know, well, this is just a group of legislators that come together. Let's dispel that notion right now. We're going to break away and let you see Governor Landry tout Amendment 2 that went down in flames yesterday. We'll be right back.
Hello, Louisiana. How about a permanent lower income tax rate? How about paying down the state's retirement debt and using those savings to give our teachers a much needed permanent salary increase? How about protecting the homestead exemption and exemptions for religious organizations and churches? Or doubling the senior citizens tax deduction so our seniors can keep more of their hard-earned money. Well, guess what? You get all of that and much more with a yes vote on Amendment 2 on March 29th or in early voting starting March 15th. Amendment 2 is a game changer, and it will build upon the successes that we have had in lowering crime and fixing education. And it adds to the other tax reform measures that have helped us win the largest economic project in our state's history. Amendment 2 will also streamline government by merging duplicate savings accounts. And it creates a permanent government growth limit, which helps us build on our efforts to eliminate government waste and efficiencies. That's Amendment 2. And guess what? You have the final say. So go out and make your voice heard and vote yes on Amendment 2.
All right, as you saw from the headline of the feature that we're doing today, Governor Landry, obviously the news media wants you to respond instantaneously to a resounding defeat like this, and he blamed it on misleading material from the far left. And there's no question there was misleading material from the far left, but I believe the problem and the scars from this are much, much deeper than just that alone. And when our headline said, is Jeff Landry ignoring the trust factor? And I'm just going to tell you, as he has been governor, a lot of trust has been eroded, not so much from the opponents who didn't have a lot of trust from him to start with, and I didn't have a lot either. I made that very clear when I gave the backhanded endorsement of Jeff Landry, but he's done a number of things since being elected governor that has done nothing but further erode any trust level that would have been with his proponents. I specifically referenced that disastrous public records bill that he tried to get pushed through. We're going to give a link for it. I'm not going to rehash it, but that absolutely hurt him because it showed that you don't want transparency. I'm not going to go any further on it because I beat it to death. We're going to give you the link, but that hurt badly. Another thing is his insistence on cramming down Jared Rickey onto the State Police Commission with regard to District 1. And I'm just going to point out a few things if you're going to have a statewide election, because Jeff Landry's name, as you saw from the prior video, he's tagged with this Amendment 2. It's tied to the hip of Jeff Landry. So if you're going to do well, and I have let folk know in his upper brass that St. Tammany Parish voters were not happy with putting Jared Rickey back on this commission, especially the way it was done. And we'll give a link for the way it was done, the whole having Stephen L. Guidry register in East Baton Rouge. I'm not going to rehash all that. We'll give the link for it. But what's happening there is there's a basic flaunting. We'll do whatever we want, okay? Because it's flaunting, and I said that if you're going to carry a statewide race, it may as well have Jeff Landry's name on the ballot. You better do well in St. Tammany Parish. Now, y'all know I've been doing this lately. I'm going to do it again. And that's the results from St. Tammany Parish on Constitutional Amendment 2, right there. And I hope it's being seen. It looks like it is. First of all, let me stress, we'll slide over so you can see the turnout. First of all, I want to stress that you had a turnout of 22% in St. Tammany Parish, but you had a 500 vote win. That's not going to cut it, okay? And I think that's reflective of a lack of trust on the part of St. Tammany Parish voters, which I'll be honest, I don't blame them. I don't blame them. This whole Jared Rickey thing is an unmitigated disaster for the Landry camp, and I don't believe either they don't care. I don't see how they can not know. So I don't. Now we're going to examine one other parish that you would have to take as a stronghold if you were going to have any hope in this thing, and that's Livingston Parish. But the turnout first, 17.7%. Okay, 17. This is Livingston Parish, 17.7%, and you had a not even 100 vote victory. All right, these are two of the strongholds that any Republican, statewide elected Republican, is going to have to lean on heavily. All right, and you see what happened. Less than 100 votes, and in St. Tammany, 500 votes. Now, this is going to be, and remember those turnout figures I gave you, because we're going to take a look at one other parish, okay? It's a tough site. All right, but I want to emphasize one. This is Orleans Parish, okay? Look at that turnout, 30.8%. 30.8%, and look at the results. I sure hope all this is showing up on the camera. 91 to 9. 91 to 9, and the turnout was 31%. Now, is that not incredible? Because the black voter turnout for the governor's election itself was only 27%. So here you have where nobody's name is on the ballot, and yet 31% of the voters showed up and overwhelmingly rejected this. And you've got to counteract that by your strongholds of St. Tammany and Livingston. There are some others we can name, but this thing just flopped, okay, in the parishes that you had to carry and had to carry by a wide margin. So I want to elaborate. That all is falling under the category of something like the Jared Rickey and not having the St. Tammany Parish support that you needed for this thing to win. Another area that has caused a trust level problem, in my opinion, and I think that of many others with regard to Jeff Landry, is the whole Cleo Fields matter, okay? And there was an enormous amount of distrust that got built up with regard to Jeff Landry for him bending over backwards to accommodate that seat in Congress to Cleo Fields. We'll have to see how the Supreme Court handles that whole matter, but a lot of folk had a very sour taste in their mouths about what all went on for Governor Landry to ensure that Cleo Fields had a seat in Congress. So another thing that caused, in my opinion, a very strong erosion of trust in Governor Landry was his vetoing of the collateral source bill. Now, I know we say collateral source, what is that? Very briefly, it has to do with tort reform. Many people, and I fall in that camp, believe it is absolutely critical. And it passed the legislature, and then Governor Landry vetoed it. That angered a lot of people. It angered me, it angered a lot of folk that you need to have the trust of, and it eroded further trust. Now, one of the things that I learned that I did not know as this whole Constitutional Amendment 2 was making its way through towards Election Day, I did not know that E. Eric Gaylord, a prominent trial attorney here in Baton Rouge, happens to be Jeff Landry's cousin. I did not know that. Well, maybe that explains why he vetoed it. Got to take care of family. I'm not suggesting that, but I never knew that because some of us all assumed that was something he had agreed to with Carmouche, who is right now, even as we speak, litigating the coastal situation, hoping to get billions of dollars from a couple of oil companies. And Landry even said, look, right now it's time to pay for what's been done in the past. So we all assumed that that's why he vetoed the collateral source bill, that it was making good on a promise that if he would do that, that Carmouche would not fund the kind of super PAC. I don't even know the right words to use that attack David Vitter, because they can be quite effective, as demonstrated by Senator Vitter. But we all assumed that was why. I had no idea that E. Eric Gaylord was Jeff Landry's cousin. Another thing that I think eroded trust with Governor Landry, and we will provide the link for this, is I've already pointed this out, I want to touch on it briefly. At last year's Solution Summit of the Pelican Institute, he talked about how he was going to break down a lot of the barriers to entry. And we're talking about the small folk now, the folk that don't have the mega funds, break down barriers, to them being able to have a vocation without the onerous licensing requirements that this state presently has. And 3 weeks later, he, along with Mike Johnson, along with Speaker DeVilliers, or DeViller as President Trump calls him. Boy, I love that new speaker and the way Trump brought some of those names. I mean, it really was comical. Clint Quainment. So, at any rate, I digress on that. But the three of them, I mean, they absolutely united behind killing that bill that would have reduced the number of hours. That is total hypocrisy on Jeff Landry's part, okay? And it, again, sows the elements of distrust. But the biggest problem that Jeff Landry had, and I do think it's unfortunate, but it is what it is he had some distrust in the religious community. And obviously we've talked briefly about Tony Spell, who I'm sure is reveling today. But also Hunter Lundy did a significant role in voicing and funding opposition to this initiative. And I think it was a sign of desperation, I don't know any other way to phrase it, for Governor Landry to reach out to Donald Trump, and he had his son, Donald Trump Jr., gave a plug for the constitutional amendment, and it was aired the day before the vote. In other words, Friday, March the 28th. We're going to break away and let you see that little plug given by Donald Trump Jr. We'll be right back.
Hey, Louisiana, Don Jr. here. My father's fighting like never before, and now Louisiana needs to step up. Tomorrow is Election Day, so go vote yes on Amendment 2 to help Governor Jeff Landry cut taxes, waste, and drain the swamp right in your state. It's a huge vote for the MAGA agenda, so go vote yes and make Louisiana great again.
Okay, as I said, I think that had to be an act of desperation, and I'm sure that the Trump folk aren't real pleased that Don Jr. went to bat for this thing, and it flopped in, I mean, just unreal proportions. But I'm just going to say this. things that I did to promote Constitutional Amendment 2, which was not easy because I have a lot of frustration with Governor Landry, but when I believe he has good initiatives, I'm going to so state. And I believe that this package, just as he said in that introductory video we put out, I think this package had an awful lot of very good material in it, but it's a moot point now because it's not there. But I'm gonna tell you something, me and even Donald Trump Jr., we're not gonna be able to compete with what is going on with the TikTok situation and the way it's dominating campaigns. Now, I will be honest, I did not have a TikTok account until about, I don't know, eight weeks before the presidential election, and I was seeing some things, and I said, well, gee, I wish I could view this. So I broke down and I got me a TikTok account, and I'm one of those ones that gets hooked now. I can see where it's so addictive, but, you know, I followed the Donald Trump, you know, the Trump dance, which I will point out at my Thanksgiving get-together. I was only one of two people that was even aware about the Trump dance, but I mean, it was a sweeping thing that took the nation, and that kind of thing has a drastic effect on elections. But I'm gonna tell you what, the opponents to this bill, to this amendment, they deployed TikTok like nothing you would believe. I mean, you had Gary Chambers, now there again, that is far left, okay? But he did a TikTok, we're not gonna present it, but talking about how 50 Cent had put in a plug for Governor Landry, and Chambers basically said, look, you know, I'm glad you're in Louisiana, but look, you off base on this. It's 150 pages, and I guarantee you he hadn't read it. He doesn't understand the first thing about it, and Gary Chambers went on to have some very unflattering words about it. Well, I think that's what caused you 31% turnout, okay? And that's just one video. I mean, there were a bunch. In fact, there's one that just got released this morning, or at least may have been filmed early, but it was released this morning. It's 3 people gathered at a pizza restaurant, and they're all smiling because of Jeff Landry's defeat here. And then on the written caption, it says the first one who speaks to voice their joy and jubilation over this has to pick up the tab. So for the pizzas. So the whole video plays. So we're only talking about, I don't know, for most of these TikTok, you can see how stuck on YouTube I am. They tend to be very short in nature. So you've got these 3 and they're smiling and they're smiling and they're smiling, but nobody ever utters a word because they're all reveling in Jeff Landry's defeat on this, but nobody wants to end up having to pay the tab for the pizza. So I think, you know, like I said, if this was a football game, we got, and I say we because I was a proponent of this constitutional amendment, we got crushed. We got annihilated. We got our heads handed to us on a platter. And so the only thing I can say is you have to learn from defeat. That's what a good football team does. I don't think Jeff Landry is going to be one who will say, well, let me go back and try to piecemeal this together, because one of the biggest things I think needed to have happened was the liquidation of those trust funds to fund the teacher pay raise. We would never run our own finances where we're paying 18% on credit card and only earning 3% on the savings account the same amount. Anybody with a few functioning cells would say, oh no, I'm paying that credit card off. And that's what this would have done. And the tremendous interest savings would have funded the teacher pay raise. But it's been voted down. I don't think Jeff Landry's, I don't know, I can't speak for the administration. I don't think that there's going to be an attempt to regroup and regather and piecemeal this thing together. My thought is, for what it's worth, is that the teacher pay raise, the stipend that has been occurring will not occur going forward. I think it may be budgeted for fiscal year 26. I'm not positive on that, but in 27, don't look for it. I just don't see it. Instead, I think that Landry will prioritize that money toward funding the Gator initiative, which, now that's not alligators, okay, that is the acronym for basically the tuition program for paying for tuition for parents that want to choose to send their children to private school. I believe 93 million is the amount that is tentatively been earmarked for next year on that program, but clearly that is one that they're going to prioritize, and so that's probably going to come at the expense of the teacher pay raise. But look, the bottom line is there has to be a way to counter the highly effective TikTok videos that went through the roof in opposing this thing. And when you have 31% turnout in Orleans Parish, it lets you know the opponents did their job, they did their work. You can say they were misleading. It doesn't matter. An election is what it is. There's no police out there that's going to say, you can't say this, you can't say that. It's all fair game in elections. And Jeff Landry knows that better than anybody. So all I can say is the proponents of this, and look, I do what I can, and I try to, I'm not one that's going to start TikToking and giving you 40-second shorts. I'm not going to do it. It's not who I am. But I will say this, for Governor Landry and others going forward, you're going to have to find a way to counteract the TikTok phenomenon, because it's a double-edged sword. It may have really catapulted Donald Trump back to a second term in office, but the second side of that blade just absolutely slit the throats of the folks who were proponents of this bill. So all I can say is find a way to utilize TikTok to your advantage, because it clobbered us in this round. Thank you so much for your dedication on tuning into Sound Off videos. We'll just go forward. I mean, the sun came up this morning. I am disappointed, I'll be honest. But life goes on, and we'll see you next time for the next Sound Off Louisiana. Thank you so much.